Well, welcome everybody to Mazevo Connect. My name's Brian Peck. I apologize for not having my camera on today. I recently had some skin things taken care of on my face, so I'm all bandaged up right now. People were asking if it was from my bike trip. I just got back from Utah. No, it wasn't. The bike trip was great. If you haven't been to Utah before, oh my gosh, I've been there like a couple of times, but this was my first time driving across the state, and let me tell you, it's absolutely breathtaking, the scenery out there. Love that area. So, anyways, so yeah, apologize for the camera, but we've got a great Mazevo Connect here lined up today. I don't have a ton in the way of announcements other than welcoming one of our newest customers in that just came in recently, North Central University. Now, if you haven't heard of them before, they're a school up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where we do have already some Mazevo customers. University of Minnesota is a customer, longtime customer of ours up there. And we have some others as well. I think Westminster Presbyterian Church is another one that uses Mazevo up in Minneapolis. So welcome to them if any of them are on the call here today. But yeah, we're going to be talking about billing here today, and that's our topic du jour. Before we do that, I do want to introduce the Mazevo staff who is on this call because they're actually going to be the ones going through a lot of the webinar here for you today. So if you haven't been on past webinars, I'll just do some introductions. We've got Joe Finley, who's one of our software consultants, and Angela Covington as well. And then, of course, our CEO, Dean Evans. So they will be going through things. If you haven't been to one of these before, the way these usually go is we'll go through today's topic, and we do encourage this to be interactive. So throughout the whole webinar, if any questions occur to you or anything like that, please do put them in the webinar chat, and we will monitor that throughout and try to answer the questions that way. We typically have time at the end as well to answer questions there. So if you do want to unmute yourself at the end, you're welcome to do that if that's easier for you that way. But that's the way we kind of go through it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead here and we'll just kind of kick things off with today's topic. I want to kind of lay the groundwork for why we're talking about billing today. So, obviously, that's where your events turn into revenue for you. And for some of you, that's an extremely important process or part of the process there. And others, it's still important, but not as important. Everybody's kind of on a different area of the spectrum there. So, but sometimes one of the things we see a lot with billing is that, your event staff may or may not be in charge of the entire billing life cycle there. And so, you have another department that you're dealing with that actually sends out the invoices or takes the payments. And, there's a lot of coordination that happens with that. So we wanted to kind of go through what the tools are in Mazevo and how that Mazevo can support your billing process, however it's set up that way. So we're going to be talking today about a few kind of high-level topics that come into play with this, like how Mazevo can compute the prices for things for you automatically if you load it in your pricing list there, how to do estimates and confirmations with pricing on there, what the invoicing process looks like, tracking payments, deposits, that kind of thing, and then, of course, reporting on your revenue and knowing where that revenue is coming from. We do know from experience, though, that sometimes the process can be a little tough to navigate if, depending on how you do things there. Sometimes your pricing may be unclear or inconsistent. Changes might be difficult to deal with, especially after the event, and trying to reconcile what did we actually provide and are we charging them for it, things like that. Things can come off the rails if you're not careful. And so we want to provide you today with some strategies on how to mitigate that as much as possible. And one of the things that we put together, I'm going to put this in the chat here soon, is we created a little self-assessment tool so that you can look at your billing process and kind of do your own evaluation and go, hey, how well are we doing these things today? And it's just a little simple checklist thing of just different areas to look at. And it might help you. The idea was to help you identify areas of improvement, things that's like, you know what, we could probably do a better job of this or that or whatever. So I'm going to put this in the chat. It's just something you can do this after the webinar. It's not meant to be something you do right now, but share it with your team, kind of go through it. And I think it might give you some ideas on areas where you can improve with the billing process. The other thing I will mention with that too is we are always here to help. So if you're like, yeah, I know I've got some things I want to take care of, or I saw some stuff that looked really cool in the webinar and we want to implement that, please do just reach out to us on that. We would love to help you with it. You can reach out to our support staff and we can set up, a time to go through that stuff with you. So we are definitely here to assist you with that today. So before we jump in and start going through the content of this, I did want to put a poll up and just kind of do a survey of the folks that are here today, kind of see where everybody's at with their billing. And so let me see if I can launch the poll here, or got a little poll with this. All right. So this first poll is just trying to understand how many of you are using Mazevo's billing features today. So just pick the one that seems most relevant and give everybody a few moments to answer. It's always good to kind of know where everybody's at with things here.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, go. Great, looks like we've got about 32 responses so far. I'll give you another minute if you want to answer, and then we'll wrap it up here.
I don't want to set up. I hate the setup for it.
Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and share these results here. It's kind of distributed, it looks like. So, we've got a bunch of you that are using quite a few of Mazevo's billing features in there. Some of you are creating invoices. Others are not using billing at all. So this will be a great introduction for you to kind of see what some of the tools are here today. So excellent. All right. So we'll stop that one. And then just got one more poll and then we'll get on with it here. So let's see. The next one, let's go back here to this. The next one's to find out who in your organization's kind of in charge of billing here. So is this something that's done? Think of it as something that's like, is this done by your department or do you rely on another department to do billing? That kind of thing. So if you can go ahead and answer that here. Okay, good. I'm not seeing many people answering not sure, unclear. That is good. So at least you know who is collecting revenue in your organization. That is important here. All right. All right, we'll give you another moment to respond. They're still coming in. About 3/4 of you have responded at this point. That is awesome. All right, I think we got everybody here, so we'll end the poll. All right, and I'll share the results with you again. So it looks like it's definitely a mix as far as who's on this webinar today. About 1/4 of you have a finance or accounting office that does it. 1/4 of you, the events team does it, and then the rest are kind of depends. It's like the event team does some, finance does some. So that is great to know. All right. So that's it for my polls for now. I've got a couple more here later in just a moment, but let's go ahead and get on with things. So where we're going to start with this today, Angela is going to start us off. She is going to go through just a basic billing workflow. So those of you that haven't utilized Mazevo's billing tools in the past, this will give you a good sense of kind of where things are. And then once she's done with that, Joe's going to jump in and he's going to go through some more advanced topics, how to edit things, changes, stuff like that. So those of you that are more advanced with Mazevo and the billing and tools and things like that, there'll probably be a few things, few nuggets for you in there that you can learn from. And then Dean will wrap us up with going through the revenue reporting side and kind of some of the options there. So with that said, I am going to go ahead here and let me stop my share and I'll turn it over to Angela.
Thanks, Brian. Okay. All right, so like Brian said, we're going to kind of go just a basic overview of billing in an event. So we're going to review this event request and kind of look through the billing and the pricing of it before we get ready to send a confirmation or an estimate. So the first thing I'm looking at here wanted to show you is where the pricing plan is located on an event. So you can see that this one has an internal pricing plan applied to it. And it may have been done manually, or it could be tied to an organization. So an organization can be assigned a specific pricing plan. So the basket weavers, they're an internal group. The first thing I want to do is look here and see that there's no rates here. So where is this $723 coming from? So no room fee. So the basket weavers aren't paying for rooms today. But looks like they've got some charges here under resources. They're paying for some tables, um, for catering on these events. So just kind of reviewing this before we send a confirmation to make sure everything looks right. And so we're going to go up here to the email to send a confirmation or an estimate, whatever you call it on your end. I've already got a confirmation template selected here and a header and a footer. So you can add headers and footers to your confirmations if you'd like to do that. And you can see here's where our header is for our event confirmed. Here's all of our pricing that we just looked at, making sure that's correct. And then here's our footer. One thing I wanted to point out is if you collect billing codes from your internal clients, you can configure that in your security policies. So you could collect billing codes from, maybe you want to make it mandatory for your university departments, but maybe your student orgs make it optional. So you can configure that however works for you. So you can see here, you can add this to your confirmation or estimate before you send it. And then also please note that we changed the label on this one to favor charge code. So if your university or organization calls this something else besides billing code, we can help you change that so it makes more sense for your clients. Okay, so we're going to send this confirmation here. And you'll see here that we have another message configured, and we'll just send this over to Dean. So that is your first step of reviewing and then sending a confirmation. I also wanted to show you if you collect deposits as part of your workflow, you can do that here through the event. And here's where you would do that. Now, for this internal event for today, we're not going to actually collect it, but I just did want to go over this and show it to you. So this is where you can add a deposit or collect a deposit before the event, if that's something that you do. And you would see that you've got some options of what kind of payment, also choosing the department if you have multiple invoicing departments configured in your system, and then the amount. So this is where you do that. And then, so once the event's over, now we're ready to invoice. We're going to create the invoice right here. Choose our department. If you have events that are recurring, maybe they happen once a week or once a month, and you want to invoice each booking, you can do that with specific dates. So this is where you can select that, and you can only maybe invoice the past events, but you've got future events that you're not ready to invoice yet. So that's where you can do that. And then we're going to preview this. Again, we've got some invoice headers and footers already configured for our invoice here. That billing code is here again on your invoice, and you can see your header and your footer. Just checking the price. We've got it configured where we've got our service providers separated. And we're going to generate this invoice. And then once we generate it, we can send it to our client. Whoop, I do not have an invoice configured here, but here is your invoice. And we'll send that to Dean. Dean's getting all the emails today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, I think I hit all of the basics on that. Any questions in the chat so far?
Nothing so far.
Okay.
And I did just post out there, if anybody missed it, the self-assessment checklist that I promised you earlier. So that's in the meeting chat if anybody wants to grab that. And thank you, Angela, for going through that stuff. Before we move over to Joe here, I just wanted to pop up another quick poll for everybody and kind of see where the challenges are for you with billing today. So that's what this question's all about right here. If you just want to take a moment to read through those and pick the one that's kind of your biggest challenge, or maybe you don't have any challenges and everything's just rosy. So that's fine too. So. Okay, looks like some of you have challenges. That's okay. It's okay. This is a safe space to share this. It is an anonymous poll, so no one will be judged. Okay. Responses are kind of spread out as I was expecting, although there are two that are kind of neck and neck right now. So we'll see. Everybody, if you want to get your answer in, just take a few more moments for that. Okay. It's there. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll here. So we ended up with a tie for the two biggest challenges, but then we got everything kind of spread out from there. So late changes to event details or services. Yes, that is always difficult to deal with. And then payment deposit follow-up is hard to track. So yeah, making sure that you get paid, right? Or get those deposits in, things like that. It's like, how do you do that? So I think you'll get some ideas for that here in just a moment. But yeah, thank you all for sharing that information. So now I'd like to go ahead and introduce Joe. He's going to go through and kind of expand upon a little bit of what Angela was just showing you there.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I'm Joe. I'm going to pick up on that same event that Angela created the invoice for and kind of give you a different additional workflow to go with that. So I'm going to just first go in and find the invoice. I could do a find invoice, find events, whatever. I just happen to know for the example today, I know my event number, so I put it in up here and I have it ready to go. So I'm going to show you a few little things that are important, little key pieces, and then some advanced items with regards to changes. Because here's my use case I'm going to throw out here for this is that, well, we now have this one invoiced. We can see that we have one invoice here under invoicing. I'm going to flip over to that in a moment. And then we're saying that, oh, well, this happened yesterday we ended up finding out that there were some cleaning that we had to do afterwards. So we're going to add some cleaning charges to this, but we've already invoiced. And so it might be, how do we do that, right? And also this, as Angela pointed out, the pricing plan is an internal pricing plan, but we determined that, wait, this was actually invoiced incorrectly with that pricing plan, and it should have been a student because this is like a student group or something. So we're going to flip that. So I'm just giving you those as advanced things that you can do on your event. So once you're actually here as an event planner, or maybe the person in finance that is reviewing these invoices, and Dean will get to how you see those all on different reports and whatnot. So here we have our 3 bookings, the 27th, 28th, and 29th, into our multi-purpose room. And where Angela showed you all the resources here were where the charges were, okay? So we have a little nifty little piece here icon, that is, to show you that this item has been invoiced and so forth. So that, don't forget that that's what that is for. You can hover over it and it'll tell you what invoice number it is in case you need to go do a search and find for that specific invoice. Okay. So that's a neat little thing that some people forget about, is that that tells you what has been invoiced. And the reason is that you can also simply come in here and add additional resources to this event after it has been invoiced. And that, again, might be because at the end of invoicing, end of the event, wherever you've actually done your invoicing, maybe you've done it before the event or the day of, but then you come back 2 days later and you've determined, oh, well, we had to do some additional charges. So I'm going to show you how to add in additional resources. And in my example, I'm going to do is going to be simply on the last day because they used it all 3 days. So I'm going to apply this resource addition to just one of the dates. And that's how I do it. Okay. And where's my screen? It's a little bit off. There we go. My next button. And then I'm going to look for, oh, it's at the top there. My other fees. So this is where I'm actually seeing my resources that are additional fees. So I've got my cleaning fee that's going to be in here. And the way that we have this resource configured is just a quantity. It could be by hours or things like that as well. Depends on what you need to do. But we're just doing it as one. So basically like 1 hour of additional cleaning that I needed to put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I could add some notes here. So okay, just to put in there of what we have. I'm going to add that. And then my question, I don't need any more resources to add to it. So now then I can see down here that there is one item that is not actually invoiced because it doesn't have the little icon next to it, okay? So that's how I know. Now I could now go over here to invoicing. We can see the invoicing or the invoice that was generated. If I needed to look at that, I could simply open that. It'll open up in a new browser tab and I could preview that, and I could see what it was. But you notice on that invoice, it's not including that cleaning fee because we just added it, right? And the invoice was already sent, okay? So that's one of those check and balances that your finance office or your events people need to do after the event. Look and make sure that everything is charged, that should be charged and whatnot. Now, as a example here, with this with this resource added in here, it pulled in the pricing of $25 based off of this internal pricing plan. Now, I can actually change that. So if I want to, I could edit the pricing and say, well, wait a minute, that's not actually right. I need to bump that up from the unit of 25 to something else. So I could easily manually do this. Okay, so it's like, oh, well, our charge is actually $30. So this is how you also change any pricing after it's been pulled in from the pricing plan. Totally available for you to do anytime. Doesn't have to be after invoicing or anything like that. You can just change it anytime. Okay. Now, the other thing that I mentioned is that, well, we realized this wasn't just an internal, but this was a student. So we need to actually change this pricing plan that's applied here to give us the charges of the 73, right? Now, in changing that, if you need to, you've got to remember anything that's already invoiced is not going to change or be affected. It's also actually, let me get on my tab. It's also, so if I pull in student here, it's also not going to change any pricing that I've already applied to the event. So I'm changing the pricing plan here, and I'm going to say save, and you can see that nothing has changed down here. Now, for your back-end knowledge of the configuration that I have, is that the cleaning fee is actually $25 for internal, but it's a I think I got it as a 50% discount for a student. It might be 10%, 10 or 15 per 50%. So that discount has not been applied here yet because all I actually did was change the pricing plan to the student. So if I now pull in any new resources or rooms, then that will read from that pricing plan. But it hasn't done any of that yet. And that's a key item for you to realize when you've just changed the pricing plan, none of your existing pricing, whether it's invoiced or not, isn't going to change. Okay. The way you have to get it to change is by selecting either the item or all the items. Again, I've got these invoices, so those aren't going to change anyway. But this menu, pop-up menu called reset pricing, this is the magic button here that will then apply the changes in the dollar amount to the items that I have checked. So in this use case, I'm simply going to put in that change for this one and click reset pricing, and it gives you an "are you sure?" So that way you make sure you don't kind of do it by accident. But again, it's because I changed my pricing plan. So if I click yes, now then you can see I've got my discount of minus, so it was a 10% discount there for the $2.50 off for the students. Okay, so that's how the reset pricing works. Okay, now in order for me to invoice that, I could just simply go and create my invoice for that item that isn't charged. But typically, you want to, what we call this function called regenerate. And regenerate basically saves you a step of reproducing the invoice. Now, some accounting people don't like to do the regenerate. They like to simply create the brand new one for the items that weren't invoiced. But we have different people's business processes that they like to do. So I'm just going to show the regenerate process, okay? Because I could delete the invoice, or I could just add the brand new one for the charges that aren't there, okay? But in regenerate, this is going to take the charges that were on the first invoice. It's actually going to delete that invoice and then create a brand new invoice for all of the new charges and the ones that were sent. So we're going to basically say, this invoice was incorrect. We're going to go ahead and just resend it with the new one. So now you can see that that 548 one is now deleted, and then the 549 is actually created. And that invoice can be sent by simply clicking on it. And in there, we see the last resource item in here charged with the discount on it. Okay. So that's how we then show the new invoice with the new fee on there. And as Angela mentioned, all the service providers are summarized down here at the bottom so that you can see it. But it is in the total that's right above it. We just do the summary. And this, again, is how I've configured the invoicing department to show these breakouts based on those service providers. And then the same process goes forward with doing your send and everything that Angela showed. Okay. So that's one of the more complex methods, but in there I showed you quite a few little different things that you could do within the billing or pricing of items. You can edit your pricing at any time for any item, and unless you actually do that reset price, it won't reread from the pricing plan. Those pricing plan prices I think of as probably as more the default price that comes in when you have that applied to your event. And then you as an event planner can edit any of those at any time.
Is this Casper?
Sorry, was that a question?
Hey Beth, I'm good, thanks. So
that's a mute.
this should be pretty straightforward if you're in front of that computer. When we see warnings like that, because I'm guessing you're trying to open the files that are inside of the Explorer,
Somebody,
you know, the little
Brian,
folder
can you-
Hold on,
Casper.
Joe. I'm trying to get rid of them.
Okay.
Hold on.
There you go.
There
Casper
we
got
go.
it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it's like what? Okay. So those are some of the pieces that you can do on an actual event. Those prices, once they're put on, they don't change unless you change them, and so forth. That's the biggest key, because people think, oh, well, I changed my pricing plan, but my prices should change. Well, they don't until you actually hit that reset. And again, we have it over here on the bookings separately from where it applies on the resources. Okay. Which, by the way, now we should see, where's my refresh? I get my little icon on my $22.50 for cleaning now. So that's where my new invoice has all of those, and you can see the new invoice number. So again, when you're checking here to do the reset pricing, you have both of the tabs to consider with regards to resources and with bookings. Okay. All right. So that's my use cases. I'm going to stop my share and let Brian go with another poll.
Yep, that's right. Thanks, Joe. All right, good stuff there. Okay. I just turned on my little avatar here. Everybody like that? Just discovered that in Zoom. It's pretty exciting. So I do have one more poll before we turn it over to Dean here, just to get one last bit of feedback from everybody. So this poll here is about how you handle changes. So since Joe just kind of went through some of the ways that changes are dealt with in the billing process here, we'd love to hear from you how you deal with changes there. And if you really have a process, you know, what's your thoughts on how good your process is for dealing with changes on your events? Because we find that this is where problems can creep in a lot in people's billing processes, is they just don't have a well-documented or well-followed process there. So, okay. Oh yeah, we're getting some quick responses here. Thank you for those. So, and also thank you too for the folks that are putting their questions in the chat. Looks like we've got some lively questions going on in there. So that's good stuff. All right. Give everybody another moment to answer their questions there. This is another one where the responses are kind of all over the place. All right. Perfect. Looks like we've got pretty much everybody's responses in there. So I'll share these with you. As you can see who we have on the webinar today, the winner here by a little bit of a margin was we have some process, but it's inconsistent. So consistency in the process can be an issue sometimes. But we do have about 20% of you that I would give a gold star to. You have a clear, documented change process. That's kind of the gold standard. It's clear. People know what it is. It's documented. That's great. But don't feel bad if you're not there yet. Everybody's kind of, we're all on a journey. So it's just about trying to, be as good as you can there. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll here, and I will turn it over to Dean, who's going to talk about revenue reporting now.
Holy mackerel, action in the chat today. I'm just going to say, I feel like I'm running the support desk. Okay, let's talk about a couple other little invoicing things. And then at the end of this, we'll try to circle back and answer some of these questions. I'm going to talk about reporting and some of the other tools here to locate invoices. So one of the main reports you can use more from the billing perspective is find invoices. This tool lets you report on invoices you've generated, payments, deposits, things like that. So it's really handy to find things that you've done, right? Hence the name Find Invoices. So we're going to come in here. You're going to pick your department, and we'll talk about multi-department in a moment. I'm going to say I want to find all transactions. Now notice that's transaction date, not booking date. So these are invoices or deposits or payments received within those dates. So in this case, we're going to look at invoices. And I'm just going to go ahead and run it here just to show you what it looks like. Here's all of the invoices that we've generated between those two dates, okay? And you can use this kind of as your open invoice report if you wanted to, because you can come over here and see the balance due right here. You can also add a payment to an invoice right here. And you can also see what deposits have been applied. Now, Greg, you asked a question, what's an invoice look like when it has a deposit? This is what the invoice looks like when it has a deposit right here. And if I scroll to the bottom, you'll see the subtotal. This one actually had two deposits, 200 and a 150, and that nets out 860 minus the 350 should be 510. So that's the way the deposits show on an invoice. So I'll close that up. Now, there was another question here. What's it look like for if you send an invoice to a user? It looks like this, what I'm showing you. They're going to get an email that says, click here to view the invoice, and it's going to look just like this right here. So it should be identical. There's nothing different whether they're a global administrator or not. So back to find invoices here. The thing you can do here is if you're looking at this invoice and you want to resend it to the customer, you simply click on it, pull it up, and you can resend it here to the customer, okay? So you can't regenerate an invoice from here. You have to do that from the event as Joe showed you. So there's a couple other things here, some options. There was a question here, oh, what happens if I delete an invoice and I regenerate it? Well, there's the magic checkbox. I want to see deleted invoices. So if we run this again, you'll see here Brian's staff meetings kind of in this off color here, the alumni network, and the billing example one. Well, that's the invoice Joe just deleted when he regenerated. So you'll see it incremented the invoice number, didn't reuse the invoice number, and it deleted it. And then you come over here and it says deleted. You can actually click on this and see when it was deleted. So Joe deleted it today at 1:32. Okay, so this little history icon, very helpful. When was that invoice generated? Who did it? Friday, March 13th, Angela created that invoice. So keep an eye out for that little history icon right there. Couple other things you can do in here. By default, we don't show you invoices that are paid off, right? If there was all the deposit or payments and deposits, but you just check that and then you'll see things that have been paid in full. So you'll look at that first one, 918, total payments, 918. You want to see those payments, you can click on that. Here's the check that was put in there. You can click on that and see it. Okay. Just a couple of other things here. If you wanted to see things that have a negative balance, so maybe they overpaid the invoice, you can see that there. And then if you wanted to see an aging report, again, remember the way I ran this the first time, I just came in and said, run it. Now, if you want to see it in an aging format, you would click that aging box, and then you're going to get over here. Is it current? Is it 30 days, 60, 90? Kind of a standard old school aging report. The only reason it's going back 30 days is because that's my invoicing date. So if I increase my transaction dates, I would see date, some data in those other columns over there. So that's how you can run an aging report. If you want to find all the invoices for a particular organization, you can come in here and just limit this. And I've got one here, South Metro Business Council. So it's going to find all the invoices for that organization in the time period that I'm requesting. And again, I have all the same tools that I had. It's just filtered it down for you here. So that's something you can do. Another one you can do here is on this last tab. You want to look for an invoice, you can come over here and just key in an invoice number, and it'll find out, it'll pull up that same information. So a couple different ways to locate invoices. Primarily, it's by department. Now, as you go in here, let me show you a couple other little tips and tricks. So here's all the invoices in that same time period. I know I'm jumping back and forth, but it's all the same ones. So if I'm really looking for South Metro, you could just come in here and start typing South Metro, and it's going to filter that list for you. So you can use this search for tool right here and look for organizations, contacts, things like that. So any of the data that's here. You can also export the results of this to PDF into Excel. So keep that in mind. So if you wanted to export that aging report, you could do that as well. So all of these columns would go over there. Let's talk about payments and deposits. If you wanted to see all of the payments that were received in a certain time period, you come over here and hit search. And there's all of the payments that you received in that time period. Not really active on the payment side of things at Faber University here. Deposits. When you check deposits, you get a couple of options here. I want to see all deposits, or I want to, and you can also include ones that have been applied. Let's go ahead and do that this time. So let me just give you some terminology here. A deposit is money received prior to an invoice. If it was received after an invoice, it's called a payment. So deposits occur, and you tie a deposit to an event, not to an invoice. You tie a payment to an invoice. Okay. So a deposit that has not been tied to an invoice. So when you invoice something, if there's deposits on that event, it would automatically apply them to the invoice and reduce the invoice amount. And that ties that deposit to that invoice. It consumes the deposit. Okay. So that's kind of my terminology there. So you can see here, these first 4 deposits don't have an invoice number. So in my vernacular, those are unapplied. We've taken the money from the customer and we have not sent them an invoice. And those payments, those deposits, are tied to these events. We come down here to this last one. There's a deposit that's been consumed, and the deposit is actually showing on this invoice 544, and it was used. And that's that first one that I showed Greg. Here's the way the deposits apply. So keep that in mind. If it's been consumed on an invoice, we call it applied. Okay. And so that's how you can find those. So there's really not a lot of difference. Payments are against an invoice. Deposits are against an event. And then if you want to see them both kind of combined, there's some folks in the finance department, I just need to see all monies received in a given time period, because I want to go to my bank account and see all of the money I put into my account. And this is the tool that you would use. You'd want to combine those into payments and deposits. That's monies received and put into your bank account. So that's the option you would use right there. So that's a whole bunch of stuff that I showed you right there. The next thing I want to do is show you some other reporting that you can do. The biggest one is probably revenue analytics. So we'll come over here and we'll run revenue for this month. I want to just make note, this is by booking date. I'll explain the difference here in a moment. And I want to look at this by event. You probably want to include resources and room charges. You set your statuses. You can add other filters here. The one you probably would use, you could do org type or service providers. You could do it by location if you wanted to. I'm just going to run the whole thing because I don't have that much data. And now this is going to bring up revenue. So these are all of the charges that are on the events that are out there. Now, they may not be invoiced. Okay, so you can use this to look forward in your system and say, how much revenue am I going to get? And you can also use it to say, what revenue have I billed? Okay, I'll show you that here in just a moment. But as you're here, it's got all the creature comforts. The one thing I want you to remember is if you want to find a total for an event, you can just drag that column up there. So I just grab a column heading and drag it up to this gray bar right here. And then it groups all of the charges by whatever you put up here. And in this case, it's event number. So you can then see all of the charges listed over here. If you pulled the wrong one up, just take it away. If you wanted to do it by organization, you could do that. So here's Acme Industries and all of the events. Now they only have one event here. If we scroll down, admissions has got 2 events. Here's all of the charges across all of their events in the time period that I selected, okay? So don't forget that this grouping, pretty powerful. You can drag this up here and say service provider as well. You could even say, well, I want to do it 2 levels deep. I want to see chart, the service provider and resources underneath it. So AV extension cords, AV laptop, and you get some subtotaling there. All of that is actually retained when you export this to Excel, which is right here, okay? Now let's go back and look at the report here. This is by booking date without regard to whether it was invoiced or not. This option says, I want to only see revenue for things that appeared on an invoice. And so this is invoices generated this month. And I want to run that, and you'll see my charges here are a lot less than they were on the other option. So it's only things that have been on an invoice, okay? And you'll actually see the invoice number right here, okay? So that's the difference. Do you want to see invoiced or non-invoiced, okay? The other thing you can do here is you can say, I want to analyze it by event. So we collapse charges at the event level. So what I mean by that is if you had a multi-day booking and you had a room charge on each day, if you collapsed it and did it by event, you would just see a total room charge across each event, or just one line item. So let me come in here and show you, I had an example here. This afternoon break service is an example. This one event, alumni networking afternoon break service, $1,000. Now that's an accumulation of all of the break service charges on that event across all of the bookings. So if you needed to get a little bit more detail, you can change this and go by booking. And now we'll go look at that same event here. So here's the alumni networking event, and it keeps repeating. And you're like, whoa, wait, what's this? Well, each one of these different days, and you can see the days here, 420, 427. Each one of those had an afternoon break, and here was the charge. Okay. So it by event is going to summarize that for you a little bit more. So can't hurt anything by running revenue analytics. I encourage you to use that. Couple other ways to get revenue out of here. You can use our standard analytics and say, I want to look at analytics for this month by room, and I want to see revenue. I'm just going to do the top 5. You have some options here, but now it's going to just accumulate revenue by whatever your setting is there, and you're seeing revenue by room with all of those other details broken out there. So these are your top revenue producing rooms. It's kind of handy to do that. You can do the same thing here if you want to say, I want to find my top 5 customers based on revenue. Again, same thing. I'm just changing one little drop down, and here's a Jonesville Rotary. They're the top dog. So the other place you can go to find revenue numbers is find events. You can come to advanced. If you do this by resource here, you actually can see amount columns, and there's actually those gross discount tax and service charge. Those are available as columns as well. We put them over here because we kept having people say, oh, I want more columns on your revenue analytics. And so we went the other way and said, well, we've got this advanced find events that's got a ton of different columns. Why don't we put the amounts over there? So if you're looking to add other columns to revenue analytics, I'd point you to this tool right here. Okay. So that's kind of a quick overview of the reporting. I'm going to touch on batch creation. If you want to create invoices in batch, that's what this create invoices tool's for. You just give it the booking date range. You can do some filtering by org type. So if you wanted your internal or external customers, you could just do those in separate batches. You can filter out things that have been completely discounted or completely paid with deposits. You can have some options there. And show completed. If you had a series event, every Monday for the next 6 months, it's not completed until that last booking has passed. So again, to accommodate billing, by month, you probably are not going to use the completed option. So let's go ahead and run that. That's just going to go accumulate all of the events in that date range that need to have invoice generated. If you've already generated an invoice for these events, it's not going to appear here. So these are uninvoiced events. Okay, and if you want to see what that charge is, you can simply click on it. You get a preview of the invoice here and what it would look like. Now, there's no number assigned because you haven't generated it yet. If I hit the generate button, that's going to assign an invoice number and lock it in, and you'll be on your way. If you want to see what we call a billing worksheet, if you want to preview this, you can come over here and check these boxes. You could select them all, and then there's a billing worksheet. It's really just an invoice in preview mode, and you'll see all of the invoices that you're about to generate here. And so you can create a PDF and hand that out and have somebody review it. So, okay. I think that's all I've got. I know we're kind of short on time, so we'll open it up for any questions.
Great. Thanks, Dean. Yeah, it looks like thank you all for submitting your questions here so far today. Looks like we've had quite a few. And at this point, if anybody has any question and they prefer to ask it verbally, feel free to unmute yourself. We're happy to take any questions here right at the end.
I saw in some of the chat that people were asking about, is there a way to get rid of the services breakdown on an invoice? Because that does get confusing to a customer. Am I paying which one's the total? Which one's the services? I think we've had that confusion with some of our customers as well.
Yes, the answer is yes. You go to
Yay.
settings, invoicing department, and uncheck this box, show service provider totals. If you uncheck that, that'll remove those from the invoice.
Perfect. Thank you.
So here's a question that came in the chat. You can take this one, Dean. Is there something that tells us where to pull the money from or send it to, like the general ledger distribution on another program that will remain unnamed? This is coming from somebody that doesn't currently have Mazevo yet.
No, like what, I'll go accounting on you here. So you're looking for what's the bank account number that you're going to put those payments and deposits into. We don't really have anything for that. If I come back here and I look at payments for this period, we don't really have a way to tie that to what bank account or what internal charge account that would go to. Nobody's asked for that at this point. So
I took that question another way, which is, where does the charges for coffee, what account do those get applied to?
Oh, well, if you take it that way, the answer's all right here on revenue analytics. Let me go over there really quick. For each resource, you can tie an account code to the resource. So Bagels and Cream always gets charged to this revenue account right here. Coffee goes to its own. So you can see you're in control of these account codes. For those people that came off EMS, there was account codes over there. We've tried to streamline that a little bit, but this is the revenue account code versus the charge code. And as I scroll down here, let me see if I've got any. So here's the billing code or charge code. Billing reference in EMS speak is right here. And this is the account code. So revenue analytics is going to show you both of those.
Perfect. That was it. Do you want to talk about, is there a good way to add a non-refundable application fee, or how would you do that? So it's a fee.
Non-refundable application fee.
I'll just throw mine out there. I would just create a resource item called application fee, and I just add that to the event. And then
I'm going to have to think about that one. I don't know that there's a. Okay. Should we stay on a little bit longer? It looks like we've got lots of.
Yeah. I know we're right at our time, but yeah, any last questions that folks want to add in? Don't see any coming through. So, well, this has been a great webinar. We really appreciate everybody's questions, and I hope this was helpful for everyone. I will be sending out the recording next week, so look for that. And also, if you didn't download the checklist that I put in there for your self-evaluation of your billing process, feel free to do that. I'll also include that in the email that I send out of the recording as well. But yeah, I hope this was helpful, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody again next month. Stay tuned for the topic. I'll be sending that out too. And thanks everybody for participating. Have a good one.